If someone had told Alex Turner that swapping wives for a single night could spiral into blood on the kitchen floor, he would have laughed. But now, with the clock ticking past 2:14 a.m., his fingers sticky with someone else's life, the smell of iron and perfume tangled in the air, and the sound of sirens cutting through the quiet, he could see how quickly fantasy mutates into something unrecognizable. Desire makes people reckless. It doesn't ask for your permission. It seeps in, wrapping around your better judgment until all you see is what you want, and not what it will cost. Some people resist. Others, they let it consume them. And when the line between pleasure and danger blurs, someone always pays the price. It started on a Thursday night, over drinks, when Michael and Dana Cross made the suggestion. They were friends, or at least that's what Alex thought. He and his wife Lauren had met them at a charity gala 6 months earlier. Michael had that charismatic CEO swagger. Dana had the kind of beauty that made people turn twice. Together, they seemed like the kind of couple that collected admirers like business cards. The bar was dim, lit by golden bulbs hanging low over each table. Michael leaned forward, his voice dropping as if he were letting Alex in on a secret. "Have you ever wondered," he began, swirling the ice in his glass, "what it would be like to trade for a night?" Alex blinked. Trade what? Dana's lips curved into something sly. Wives? Lauren laughed, assuming it was a joke, but Michael didn't. Neither did Dana. They spoke in that calm, measured tone of people who knew the power of suggestion, dangling something forbidden, knowing curiosity would do the rest. At first, Alex pushed it aside. He wasn't that kind of man. But later, lying awake next to Lauren, the idea gnawed at him. It wasn't just about sex. It was about control, about seeing if life could be more than work, bills, and Netflix before bed. By the following week, Michael had orchestrated it. A weekend getaway at his lake house. 4 people, 2 couples, 1 dangerous game. No rules. The lake house was too perfect. Floor-to-ceiling windows, cedar walls, a view of the black water stretching endlessly under a pale moon. They drank wine in the living room, laughter too loud, touches too lingering. Lauren looked different. Not the woman Alex saw folding laundry or making grocery lists. She was radiant, her hair falling over bare shoulders, her eyes catching the firelight. Michael was watching her too closely. It was after midnight when the shift happened. Dana was sitting beside Alex on the couch, her perfume heady, her hand on his knee. Michael led Lauren into the kitchen under the pretense of showing her something. Alex felt the knot in his stomach tighten. Not jealousy, not yet, but something sharper. Dana leaned in, whispering, "This is the part where we stop pretending." The next morning, nothing felt the same. Lauren was quiet during breakfast, stirring her coffee too long. Michael was smiling like a man who'd won something. Dana acted as if she'd been on vacation with strangers she barely knew. Alex tried to push it out of his mind, but Michael kept calling. Dana kept texting. What was meant to be a one-night fantasy began to seep into their daily lives. Lauren grew distant. Alex found himself checking Dana's messages late at night, replaying conversations in his head. It was Michael who escalated things. He started making remarks, little jabs about how Lauren seemed more alive lately, how some women needed to be unlocked. Alex laughed them off in public, but inside the tension wound tighter. By the end of the month, Alex couldn't ignore it anymore. His marriage felt like a negotiation he was losing. The crosses weren't just in their lives, they were under their skin. The crime wasn't murder, not yet. It was the theft of trust, the invasion of something sacred. And Alex, sitting in his car outside Michael's downtown office building, watching through the glass as Lauren laughed at something Michael said, felt a dangerous heat in his chest. He wasn't sure yet what he would do, but he knew he couldn't let it go. If you want more twisted true crime style stories that pull you into the dark corners of desire and betrayal, subscribe now and turn on notifications so you never miss a heartbeat. By the time Alex realized the game had never been about swapping wives, it was too late. Michael wasn't after a one-night thrill, he was after something permanent. And Dana, she was already helping him. The days after the lake house should have been a return to normal, the humdrum rhythm of work emails, grocery runs, and falling asleep to late-night television. But Lauren had changed in ways Alex couldn't name without sounding paranoid. She smiled more often, but not at him. She wore perfume to run errands. She lingered in front of the mirror before going out, even if it was just to grab milk. She checked her phone with a quick flick of the wrist and set it face down on the counter, like a gambler shielding their cards. Dana's text to Alex came at odd hours. "Can't sleep. Thinking about you. Do you ever wish you could go back to that night? You're different from him. Softer." At first, Alex ignored them. But the more Lauren seemed to drift, the more Dana's words pulled him in. They weren't explicitly sexual, not yet, but they carried a heat that made his pulse quicken. He started replying. Small things. Harmless observations. Until they were meeting for coffee on Tuesday afternoons, by accident. Michael was everywhere. He'd stop by Alex's office unannounced, bringing bottles of wine and expensive cigars he claimed he just happened to have lying around. He'd suggest double dates, poker nights, weekend trips, weaving himself into their schedule like ivy creeping up an old wall. It wasn't just friendship. Alex felt it in his gut. Michael studied people the way a hunter studies prey, not with hunger but with calculation. He seemed to know when they were free, when they were vulnerable, when to lean in and when to step back just far enough to make you chase him. One night, after Lauren had gone to bed, Alex stood on the back porch, staring at the glow of his phone. Dana's latest message was short but dangerous. Do you ever wonder what it would be like if it were just us? The words seemed to echo in his head. Not because he didn't know the answer, but because it was exactly what he'd been thinking, and that made it worse. It was at Michael's downtown apartment that Alex first saw the cracks in their perfect image. Dana arrived alone, claiming Michael had late meetings. The apartment was minimalist, expensive in the way that spoke of curated taste rather than comfort. Dana poured whiskey without ice, her nails clicking against the glass. "He's not who you think he is," she said after a long sip. Alex leaned against the counter. "And who do you think I think he is?" She smiled without warmth. "A guy who just likes to have fun. Who pushes boundaries for the thrill. But Michael doesn't do anything without a reason. He collects people. Finds what they want most and gives them just enough of it to keep them hooked." Alex frowned. "And you?" Dana tilted her head, her hair catching the light. "I wanted freedom. He wanted control. Guess which one of us is winning?" It wasn't bitterness in her voice, it was resignation. The more Dana revealed, the more Alex began to see Michael's pattern. The man wasn't seducing Lauren because he couldn't help himself. He was orchestrating something. Testing dominance. Seeing how far he could bend people before they snapped. And Lauren was bending. Alex could see it in the way she deferred to Michael in conversation, how she laughed at his stories like he was the only person in the room. There was a spark in her eyes when Michael was near, one Alex hadn't seen in years. One Thursday, Alex came home early and found Lauren on the phone in the living room. Her voice was hushed, intimate. She didn't notice him until she turned toward the hallway. The second she saw him, she hung up, too quickly. "Who was that?" Alex asked, keeping his tone light. "Work," she said, her voice steady. But she didn't meet his eyes. That night, Alex lay awake staring at the ceiling, wondering just how deep they were in, and how far Michael was willing to go. The breaking point came at a dinner party. The Crosses hosted, of course. Candlelight. Expensive wine. Soft jazz in the background. It should have been pleasant, but everything felt rehearsed. Lauren was seated across from Michael. The way he spoke to her was different. Lower, slower, as if every word was meant for her alone. Dana was watching, sipping her wine like she was counting the minutes. In the middle of dessert, Michael reached over and brushed a crumb from Lauren's lip with his thumb. It was small, almost playful, but the air in the room seemed to shift. The candle flames flickered, a draft slipping through an open window. For a moment, no one spoke. Dana's eyes met Alex's across the table. There was no jealousy there, only something colder. Pity. Alex left early, muttering something about work in the morning. Dana followed him out to the driveway, the night air sharp with autumn chill. "You're not going to win against him," she said quietly. "He's already decided how this ends." Alex stared at her. "Then why are you telling me this?" "Because," she said, her voice dropping lower, "sometimes two people trapped in the same cage realize they're not enemies." That night, Alex finally asked the question that had been eating at him. "What do you want from me?" Dana's reply came within seconds. "A way out. And I think you want the same thing." It was the first time Alex realized that what started as a fantasy had become a trap. And traps only have two options: wait for them to spring, or break them yourself. If you're drawn into the shadows of this story, subscribe now and turn on notifications. Every reveal cuts deeper, and you don't want to miss the next one. Some people play games to pass the time. Michael played them to see who would break first. And Alex was starting to realize that every move he made was already part of Michael's plan. Michael's presence was like a shadow. Even when he wasn't there, Alex felt him. A scent of expensive cologne lingering on Lauren's scarf. A joke she repeated that Alex had never heard before. A song she hummed that Michael once played at the lake house. Dana's words haunted him. "He's already decided how this ends." If that was true, Alex had two choices: wait for whatever Michael had planned, or turn the game around. It began with watching. Alex started leaving for work early, doubling back to see where Lauren went during her morning errands. Twice he saw her car parked outside Michael's high-rise. No grocery bags in sight when she returned home. At lunch, Alex met Dana under the guise of catching up. She'd chosen a quiet cafe, tucked into a side street where no one would recognize them. Her hair was pulled back, sunglasses hiding her eyes. "You're getting reckless," Dana said, stirring her coffee without looking up. "You called me," Alex reminded her. "You answered." Her mouth curved slightly, but there was no humor in it. "You think you can beat him. But Michael doesn't lose." Alex leaned in. "Then why help me?" She hesitated, then set down her spoon. "Because watching him destroy someone else is the only time I feel like I'm not the only one." Her words landed like a punch. Over the next week, Alex started pushing back. When Michael suggested another double date, Alex declined. When Michael dropped by with wine, Alex didn't open the door. Lauren noticed. "What's going on between you two?" she asked one evening as they cleared the table. "Nothing," Alex said. "I'm just busy." Her eyes narrowed. "It feels like more than that." And there it was, the hint of defense, of loyalty to Michael. 2 nights later, Alex received a text from Michael. "You and I should talk. Without the wives." The message wasn't a request. They met at a rooftop bar downtown. Michael arrived late, immaculate in a navy suit, no tie. He ordered bourbon neat. "You've been avoiding me," he said casually, but his eyes stayed fixed on Alex's face. "I've been busy," Alex replied. Michael smirked. "Busy keeping score?" "Dana's been talking. She's not loyal, you know. Never has been. But you already knew that." Alex's pulse ticked faster. "I think I know exactly what she is." Michael leaned forward, his voice low. "You think you're the only man she's confided in? The only one she's whispered about wanting out? She tells everyone that. It's how she gets what she wants." The accusation wasn't surprising. It was the ease with which Michael delivered it, like a man tossing a lit match onto dry grass. Later that night, Alex replayed the conversation in his head. Was Michael lying to sow distrust? Or was Dana playing both sides? The uncertainty gnawed at him. By Friday, Alex's investigation took a darker turn. He found himself outside Michael's high-rise again, parked where he could see the lobby without being seen. At 1:47 p.m., Lauren walked in. 10 minutes later, Dana did too. Alex stayed until 3 o'clock, but neither woman came out. The following day, Dana called him. "You've been watching," she said flatly. "How do you?" "I saw you. You're not as invisible as you think." She paused. "Michael invited us both over yesterday. Together. Think about that." Alex did, and he hated where his mind went. The next dinner the four of them shared was like sitting at a table with 3 actors reading from the same script. Michael was charming, Dana played aloof, and Lauren laughed like she'd never been happier. Halfway through the meal, Michael brought out a bottle of scotch, pouring for each of them. "A toast," he said, "to honest friends." Alex met Dana's eyes over the rim of his glass. Her expression was unreadable. Michael grinned. "And to the best games, the ones you never see coming." That night, Alex confronted Dana outside. "What was that about?" he demanded. She lit a cigarette, the flame briefly illuminating her face. "He's letting you know you're in the middle of it now. No way out unless someone loses." Alex felt the cold night air bite through his jacket. "And if I don't plan on losing?" She exhaled smoke slowly. "Then you'd better start thinking like him." For the first time, Alex considered that beating Michael at his own game might mean crossing lines he'd never thought himself capable of crossing. And judging by the look in Dana's eyes, she already knew that's where this was heading. If this story has your pulse quickening, subscribe now and turn on notifications. Every move in this dangerous game leads closer to the breaking point. By the time Alex realized the dinner invitation was a trap, it was too late to decline. Tonight, someone was going to make a move they couldn't take back. It started with a phone call from Lauren. Her voice was casual, but the words were too rehearsed. "Michael and Dana are having us over for dinner. You should come straight from work." Alex hesitated. "What's the occasion?" "Just to clear the air," she said, but there was something brittle beneath the lightness. Clear the air. The phrase echoed in Alex's mind all afternoon, but not as an invitation, as a warning. The Cross's house was warm, low-lit, and too quiet. No music played this time. The dining table was set for 4, candles flickering. Michael greeted Alex with his usual easy smile. but there was no warmth in his eyes. "Glad you made it," Michael said, clapping a hand on Alex's shoulder just a second too long. Dana appeared from the kitchen carrying a tray of appetizers. She wore a black dress, her hair pulled back, and her expression was unreadable. She didn't look at Alex when she set the tray down. Lauren was already seated at the table, sipping wine like she needed the glass to anchor her hands. They made small talk through the first course, but it was the kind of conversation that left no room for comfort. Michael asked Alex about work, about the house, about how things have been lately. The questions were framed like concern, but the way he studied Alex's answers felt like an interrogation. Halfway through the meal, Michael leaned back in his chair. "You know what I like about you, Alex? You've got restraint. Most men, they lose it when they feel threatened." Alex set down his fork. "And you've been testing mine?" Michael's smile sharpened. "Everyone needs to be tested now and then. Makes life interesting." Dana's hand tightened on her wine glass. Lauren glanced between them, her lips pressing together. The tension stretched until Michael finally stood and went into the kitchen. The moment he was out of earshot, Dana looked directly at Alex. "Don't rise to it," she said in a low voice. "That's what he wants." Lauren's head snapped toward her. "What does that mean?" Dana didn't answer. Michael returned carrying a bottle of scotch and 4 glasses. He poured for each of them, the amber liquid catching the candlelight. "A toast," he said, raising his glass. "To truth." They drank. The scotch burned sharper than usual. The rest of the night blurred. Alex wasn't drunk, but the warmth in his veins made everything feel slowed, like the edges of the room were softening. Michael told stories that kept circling back to loyalty, betrayal, and what it meant to know where someone's real loyalties lie. By the time dessert arrived, Alex was certain the dinner had never been about reconciliation. It was a provocation, a push toward a line he wasn't supposed to cross without Michael's permission. When it was over, Michael walked them to the door. "Drive safe," he said, his tone casual, but the way he locked eyes with Alex made it clear the evening wasn't finished, not in his mind. Back home, Lauren was quiet. She set her purse down, kicked off her shoes, and poured herself another glass of wine. "Something's going on between you and Dana," she said finally. Alex's jaw tightened. "And between you and Michael?" She froze for a second, then took a slow sip. "It's not what you think. I think he's trying to take everything from me," Alex said. "And you're letting him." Her eyes flashed. "You don't get to play the victim, Alex. You've been meeting Dana behind my back. Because she's the only one who sees what he's doing. Or because you wanted her." The words hit like a slap, not because they weren't true but because they were. They slept in separate rooms that night. Alex woke at 3:12 a.m. to the sound of his phone buzzing. A message from Dana. "He's going to make his move soon. You need to decide where you stand." The next morning, Alex found himself outside Michael's high-rise, watching the entrance from his car. At 8:43 a.m., Lauren walked in. At 8:51, Michael arrived. At 10:06, Dana texted again. "You don't win by waiting." That evening, Alex showed up at Dana's apartment. She opened the door without a word, stepping aside to let him in. The air smelled faintly of smoke and something floral. "You want to stop him?" she asked. "Yes." "Then you're going to have to do something you can't undo." Alex didn't ask what she meant. Deep down he already knew. They sat across from each other in the dim light of her living room. Dana laid out what she knew, Michael's patterns, his arrogance, the way he underestimated people once he thought he owned them. She spoke in a calm, measured tone, as if they were discussing business rather than the possibility of ending a life. "When he's not in control, he gets sloppy," Dana said. "If we hit him when he's sloppy, we can make it look like anything we want." Alex stared at her. "You've thought about this before." "I've lived with him for 7 years," she said, her eyes cold. "Of course I have." By the time Alex left, the air outside felt different, sharper, more alive. The plan wasn't solid yet, but the decision had been made. The next time Michael pushed, Alex wouldn't just push back. He'd end it. If you've been hooked by this descent into betrayal and manipulation, subscribe now and turn on notifications. The breaking point has been reached and the next step is irreversible. When Alex finally stood over Michael, the knife trembling in his hand, he understood what Dana meant. This wasn't about winning anymore. It was about survival. Michael's downfall began, fittingly, with an invitation. A message pinged onto Alex's phone late on a Thursday night. "Poker night. Just the guys. 9 p.m. bring your game face." It was Michael's way of setting the stage, private, controlled, on his terms. But Alex had decided the terms would be his tonight. Dana had been meticulous. She knew Michael's routines, his tells at the poker table, the way he relaxed after a few drinks. She told Alex exactly when Michael would be most vulnerable. "You wait for him to gloat," she'd said, her eyes steady. "That's when he lets his guard down." Alex had nodded, but the truth was, he'd been waiting for this night long before she suggested it. The high-rise penthouse was quiet except for the shuffle of cards and the low hum of jazz on the stereo. Michael greeted Alex with that same infuriating, self-assured grin. "Glad you came," he said, clapping him on the back just a little too hard. "Figured you wouldn't want to miss the chance to lose a little money." The view from the floor-to-ceiling windows stretched across the city, glittering under a moonless sky. The air smelled faintly of expensive leather and cigar smoke. They played. The room was warm, the lighting low and golden. Alex barely touched his drink. Michael, on the other hand, was already on his third bourbon before the first hour passed. By the third hand, Michael started talking. Not about the cards, about Lauren. "She's been smiling more lately," he said casually, as if they were discussing the weather. "I like to think I had something to do with that." Alex's jaw tightened, but he forced a laugh. "You always did have a way with words." Michael grinned. "And with women." The words hung between them like smoke. Halfway through the night, Michael leaned back, his eyes gleaming in the low light. "You know, Alex, I almost respect you. Most men in your position would have folded weeks ago." Alex kept his voice even. "Maybe I just like the game." Michael's grin widened. "Oh, this isn't the game. That was the warm-up." He said it like a man revealing a secret only he understood. At 11:42 p.m., Michael excused himself, heading toward the kitchen. Alex followed, his pulse steady but his hands tingling with adrenaline. The kitchen was dark except for the pale glow of the city spilling in through the massive windows. Michael stood at the counter, pouring himself another drink. "You've got something to say, Alex?" he asked without turning around. "Yeah," Alex said, stepping closer. "I'm done." Michael turned, a faint smirk tugging at his mouth. "No, you're not. You'll never be done. You'll always be 3 moves behind me." It was in that moment that Alex saw it, not just arrogance but certainty. Michael didn't believe he could lose. Something in Alex's chest snapped. The knife wasn't planned. Not exactly. It sat on the counter, a long chef's blade catching the glow from the windows. His hand closed around the handle before his brain could stop it. Michael's smirk twitched into surprise. "You really think?" The first thrust silenced him. The blade slid in with a sound Alex would hear in his head for the rest of his life. Michael's body jolted, his drink clattering to the floor. It wasn't quick. Michael gasped, clutching at Alex's arm, his eyes wide with disbelief and rage. Alex could feel the man's heartbeat racing under his grip, then faltering. The air filled with the sharp, metallic scent of blood, mingling with the sweet burn of spilled bourbon. Michael tried to speak, but it came out as a wet, choking sound. His knees buckled, and Alex shoved him back against the counter before pulling the blade free. The sound, the thick, sickening pull of steel from flesh, would stay with him forever. When Michael collapsed, the kitchen fell into a terrible stillness, broken only by Alex's ragged breathing and the distant hum of the refrigerator. That's when Dana stepped out from the shadows. She'd been there the whole time. "You took your time," she said, her voice low, almost approving. Alex's chest heaved. "You planned this. I gave you an opening. You took it." She glanced at Michael's body, then back at Alex. "Now we make it look like something else." They moved quickly, working in silence except for the faint squelch of the sponge as Dana wiped the counters. She handled the knife like she'd done it before, rinsing it, drying it, then wrapping it in a plastic bag. Alex's hands were still trembling, but his mind felt clear. Dana stepped close enough that he could smell her perfume over the coppery scent of blood. "You didn't just kill him, Alex. You killed the only person who could have beaten you. Don't forget that." By the time they were done, the kitchen looked almost untouched. Michael's body, however, told a different story. Dana crouched beside him, tucking a small glass vial into his pocket. "What's that?" Alex asked. "Insurance," she said. "An empty vial means drugs. Drugs mean an overdose. Overdose means we weren't here." Alex left first, slipping out through the service entrance. The city was quiet, the air cool against his damp skin. Every sound seemed sharper, the click of his shoes on the pavement, the faint echo of a siren blocks away. When he slid behind the wheel of his car, his fingers tightened on the steering wheel until his knuckles ached. He didn't drive straight home. He just drove, aimless, through empty streets until the sky began to lighten. Lauren was asleep when he walked in. He stood in the bedroom doorway, watching her chest rise and fall. She looked peaceful, untouched by the storm that had just ripped through their lives. He wondered if she'd ever know, or if Dana would make sure she never did. At 5:14 a.m. his phone buzzed. A message from Dana. "We're in this together now." Somewhere deep down, Alex knew she wasn't promising loyalty. She was reminding him that in this new game the only way out was to win. If this story has you breathless, subscribe now and turn on notifications. The aftermath is coming, and in the end, nobody walks away clean. In the end, it wasn't the blood that haunted Alex. It was the way everyone seemed to move on, like Michael Cross had been nothing more than a shadow passing through their lives. Everyone, except Dana. The morning after Michael's death, the city woke up to news that barely made the front page. Local businessman found dead in penthouse, suspected overdose. The article was short, almost perfunctory. No mention of the knife. No mention of the argument in the kitchen. Just a photo of Michael from a charity event, smiling like he always had, with the caption "Philanthropist remembered for community work." Alex read it twice over coffee, his hands steady despite the storm inside him. Lauren hadn't seen the paper yet. She was still in her robe, hair damp from the shower, scrolling through her phone. "Did you hear?" she asked without looking up. "Michael's dead." Her voice was flat, but the smallest tremor ran through it. "I saw," Alex said. She finally looked at him, her eyes searching. "They're saying it was drugs." He nodded, offering nothing more. The police came by that afternoon. 2 plainclothes detectives, polite but clinical. They asked about his relationship with Michael, when he'd last seen him, if he'd ever noticed signs of drug use. Alex kept his answers short. He told them they hadn't been close lately, that he'd seen Michael only in passing over the last few weeks. That drugs didn't seem like him, but then again, you never really know someone. The detectives took notes, thanked him, and left. Lauren watched from the doorway, her arms crossed. "They think it was an overdose," she said. "That's what it looks like," Alex replied. 3 days later, the funeral was held at a private estate just outside the city. The Cross family spared no expense. Black sedans, fresh white lilies, a line of mourners in tailored suits and somber dresses. Dana was dressed in black silk, a veil shading her face. She looked like every grieving widow Alex had ever seen in films, composed, elegant, untouchable. When she caught Alex's eye from across the lawn, there was no acknowledgement, no flicker of recognition. Just a slow, deliberate turn of her head. It wasn't rejection. It was a warning, "Not here." Lauren kept close to Alex throughout the service, her hand slipping into his as the casket was lowered. He wondered if she felt relief, guilt, or something in between. After the ceremony, Dana approached Lauren, embracing her warmly. "He always spoke highly of you," Dana said, her voice smooth, her eyes unreadable. Lauren nodded, squeezing her hand. "I'm so sorry for your loss." Dana's gaze shifted to Alex for the briefest second before she walked away, her heels clicking softly on the grass. In the weeks that followed, Michael's name faded from conversations. Business partners moved on. Social circles reshuffled. The lake house went up for sale. For Alex, life settled into something resembling normal. He went to work, came home, and shared quiet dinners with Lauren. But there was a crack in the surface, the kind you can't see until you step too close. Lauren asked fewer questions about where he went during the day. She stopped bringing up Michael's name entirely. But there was a watchfulness in her eyes, as if she was waiting for something. Dana, on the other hand, was far from gone. Her first message came exactly 2 weeks after the funeral. "We need to meet. My place. Tonight." When Alex arrived, she poured them both glasses of wine and sat across from him. "You've been quiet," she said. "Trying to stay that way," Alex replied. "Good. Keep it that way around everyone else." She leaned forward, her voice dropping. "We pulled it off. Play. But you need to remember, people like Michael don't just vanish without ripples. Sooner or later, someone will come looking." Alex studied her, wondering if she was speaking from fear or if this was another move in whatever game she was still playing. "Was this ever about me?" he asked. Dana smiled faintly. "It was about me getting out. You just happened to want the same thing, and to have the nerve to do what I couldn't." "You could have." She shook her head slowly. "I've lived in his cage too long. You were the outsider. That made you dangerous. And useful." The realization settled over Alex like cold rain. She had never been on his side. Not really. She'd just been on hers. By late autumn, the calls from the police stopped. Michael's death was officially closed as an accidental overdose. Dana sold the penthouse and moved to a smaller but equally luxurious apartment across town. One afternoon, Alex saw her at a cafe. She was with another man, younger, stylish, leaning in too close. She laughed at something he said, touching his wrist lightly. For a moment, Alex thought about walking over, but she looked up and saw him first. The smile she gave him wasn't warm or cold. It was possessive. A reminder. We're in this together now. That night, Alex dreamed of the kitchen again. The glint of the knife, the sound it made, the way Michael's eyes had looked in that final moment. He woke with the taste of bourbon and blood in his mouth, though he'd had neither the night before. Winter came early that year. On the first snowy evening, Lauren made dinner: roast chicken, mashed potatoes, red wine. They ate by candlelight, speaking in soft, careful tones. At one point, she set down her fork and looked at him for a long moment. "You've changed," she said. "How?" "You're quieter, colder. Like you're somewhere else all the time." Alex forced a smile. "Maybe I've just grown up." But they both knew that wasn't it. In the silence after dinner, Alex stood at the window, watching snow drift past the streetlights. Somewhere out there, Dana was moving on, already setting the board for her next game. And he was no longer a player, he was a piece. The thought should have terrified him. Instead, it made him feel alive. Because deep down, he knew the truth. In a world built on manipulation, the only safety came from being willing to do the worst thing at the right time. Michael had believed he was untouchable. Alex had proved otherwise. And now, the only person left who could beat him was the woman who had taught him how.